Good morning. I'm Greg Goldman, Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations at the University of Minnesota. On behalf of President Cunningham and the Board of Regents, I'm honored to welcome Governor Tim Walz, Commissioner Matt Derlick from the Economic Department of Employment and Economic Development, and the many small business leaders, community partners, and program collaborators joining us here today to celebrate the next phase of the state's Small Business Credit Initiative. I also want to recognize two of my colleagues who have played an important role in this work. Vice President for Research, Dr. Shashank Priya, who helps lead the university's robust innovation startup ecosystem, and Andrew Park, our Chief Investment Officer, who will tell you more about the specific impact of the program in a moment. We're proud to host you here at the university, Minnesota's land-grant public research institution, where innovation and impact are part of our DNA. The university's mission includes teaching, research and discovery, and outreach and public service, all aimed at improving the lives of Minnesotans. The University of Minnesota and the state of Minnesota share a deep and long-standing commitment to doing just that. We've launched over 200 startups at the university. We partner closely with DEED to support promising business. The economic impact is clear. In 2024 alone, the University of Minnesota generated $11.5 billion in statewide economic activity, supported more than 89,000 jobs, and returned $676 million in tax revenue to the state. And for every dollar the state invests in the university, it returns $17. But what we're here to really talk about today is the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Is another example of the state and the university partnership. This next chapter of the SSBCI builds on what we've achieved and ensures Minnesota's entrepreneurs, especially those in underserved and underrepresented communities, have the resources they need to grow and thrive. Thank you to everyone for being here today and in sharing this work, and thank you, Governor Walz and Commissioner Zarinette, for your leadership and for your continued partnership in this important work. Now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Governor Walz. Governor, welcome.
Well, thank you, Greg. And first and foremost, thank you to the University of Minnesota, one, for hosting us, but I think, as you heard from Vice President Goldman, the importance and the foundational piece that the University of Minnesota provides. Oftentimes, it's the training of our undergraduates and all of the jobs that we need, but there's so much more that goes on at a land-grant university and the investments in the innovation, and a lot of times we hear about it because we're very proud to be the headquarters economy. We punch way above our weight with the number of Fortune 500 companies, but that's a piece, and a very small piece when it really comes down to it. It's the entrepreneurs that are here with us. It's the small business folks. These are the folks that are the risk takers. These are the visionaries, and they are the job creators. You oftentimes hear me talk about wanting Minnesota to be the best place to raise a family. That means quality education, safe communities, access to health care, but it also means access to good quality jobs and a business environment that's thriving, that allows people, whether it's starting their own businesses, to work for one of these entrepreneurs, critically important. We're here today to announce the second tranche of a $100 million investment that was made by the federal government through the ARPA dollars that went to small business investments, that we partnered together. There's going to be 33 million of awards made today that Commissioner Verlick will talk a little bit about, but I think it's really important to hear from the recipients of this first group that was out there to understand what it means and why do we partner together. I would make the case that Minnesota, we are a top 10 state for business survivability rates. That's pretty important to these folks. When you start a business, you want it to survive, and the kind of benchmark is 5 years. Minnesota is one of the top 10 states where you'll be around longer if you start in Minnesota, and that is both from the vision of the folks that are here, but I think it's also the support that is around them. I would also make the case that Minnesota's economy being the 5th most diverse in the country, we literally do not have all our eggs in one basket. We do raise a lot of eggs, but we do a lot of other things. And you hear the highlights on biotech, ag tech, but there's so much more in high-tech manufacturing. And then as we think to the future, whether it's be chip manufacturing or thinking the AI revolutions, those need to happen right here. And our partners, federal and state investments, make a difference. And then, of course, where the magic happens is with the entrepreneurs and the visionaries that are here. So I'm just grateful to be here. Grateful for the work that's done at DEED. I keep telling Commissioner Verlick, you kind of poll, they are the most popular of our state agencies. And I know DNR takes some offense with that, but they work really hard too. But it's because I think people see what partnership looks like, and this is a team that's doing that. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Barelick at Dean.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate that very much. Thanks again to the U of M and to everyone who has joined us here to have a nice conversation about this very important topic, and to all of you for joining as well. I'll confess, my mind is in a little bit two places as I've been studying my materials for this event and looking at some of the businesses that have benefited from the SSBCI program. I learned that two of them, Hoyo Sambusa as well as Soul Bowl, are among the featured food vendors at the State Fair coming up pretty soon. So my mind is on small business, but also deep fried food, which we'll all be enjoying very soon. As the governor mentioned, this is an important announcement that we're making today. We are partly celebrating the progress that has been made with the first round of this funding, which in total, as he said, will add up to nearly $100 million. So far, we've deployed $29.5 million of those dollars. We use them at Deed to fund 6 individual programs that then can be deployed to meet the needs of a wide range of businesses. But with that first tranche of funding, we've helped over 160 businesses in, I think, 44 communities across Minnesota. So really want to emphasize the breadth of impact that the program is having. And I think as you hear from the businesses that we have with us, as well as the financing partners, you're going to understand quite the range of industries and types of founders we're able to assist as well. With the next round that we're announcing today of $33 million, we anticipate serving over 200 businesses, 225 I think is our projection. And so we look forward to lots more impact along the lines of what you can hear today. Because we have programs like this, which then support the 6 individual programs, 2 related to venture capital, some related to high growth businesses, some related to automation, and a variety of other circumstances, we are able to pair that with other resources we have at Deed and to support businesses at all stages of their life cycle. The governor talked about the headquarters economy. We're proud that we have 17 Fortune 500 businesses. We added one most recently with Solventum. We have lots of great medium-sized businesses, and then we have a very thriving small business market. I think since the pandemic, since pre-pandemic numbers, our number of startups is up 50%, and that compares very well to the rest of the country. And then you look at that figure the governor mentioned about the fact that we always rank in the top 10 on 5-year business survivability. Means this is a good place to start a business and to grow and succeed and persist in business. We're proud to be partners in that at Deed. Appreciate the kind words from the governor, and I want to note that we have a couple members of our communications team here, Liam and Devin. We have Deputy Commissioner Kevin McKinnon that runs this program, and then his direct report that specifically is doing the work on SSBCI, Drew Lindorfer. Appreciate those partners, and then all of those with whom we do the work, some of whom are here today. It's CDFIs, it is support organizations that provide training to small businesses, and then it is the financing partners as well. And chief among them, you could say, is the U of M. And so with that, we'd like to hand it over to the Chief Investment Officer for the university. Take it away.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. Again, my name is Andrew Parks. I'm the Chief Investment Officer here at the university, and I'd like to join Greg in thanking Governor Walz and Commissioner Barelick for being here and for championing this important initiative. Thanks as well to our local business leaders for joining us today. As the Chief Investment Officer for the university, I oversee the venture capital arm of the State Small Business Credit Initiative. And one of the things that excites me most about the program, that I'm proud about, is that it's a program that really embodies the public service mission and action that we have. And that is to share and apply knowledge to the benefit of the people of the state of Minnesota, the nation, and the world. Over the past decade, our team has deployed over $500 million in early stage ventures via the endowment, as well as through the Discovery Capital program, through which we have selectively invested in many of the over 200 innovative startups that have been launched by the university's tech commercialization efforts. 3 years ago, this partnership with the state empowered us to extend that expertise and know-how to Minnesota's innovation community. We now have the capital to support local entrepreneurs, many of whom are often underserved by the traditional capital markets, all while bringing institutional quality rigor to the process, adding value through effective sourcing, robust due diligence, thoughtful program design, and active company and ecosystem engagement. And our goal is simple: to turn this initial capital into a renewable resource. So by investing prudently in recycling returns, we aim to build a sustainable venture engine that fuels innovation creates jobs, and drives growth for Minnesota's next generation of entrepreneurs. So today, as we kick off phase 2, it's a good time to reflect on the progress that we made to date. Led by my colleague Finn Sampson, we've committed $9 million of the $10 million first tranche, providing growth capital that allows these Minnesota businesses to ramp up hiring, to advance research and development efforts, to expand into new markets, and to catalyze revenue generation. In total, this capital is already supporting 36 different companies, which collectively employ over 300 Minnesotans, with nearly an additional 300 positions expected to be created, in no small part due to the infusion of this capital. And we're just getting started. We have representatives from a handful of those companies here with us today, from removing harmful forever chemicals that are prevalent in our drinking and industrial wastewater, to developing novel chemistries that can be used to protect agricultural crops and generate better yields. It's really their stories that underscore why I'm so optimistic about the potential of this program. Not just in backing top-tier startups with transformative ideas, but also in helping build and support a thriving innovation economy here in Minnesota. So with that, I'll turn it back to the Commissioner to kick off the roundtable.
Great, thank you. So next up, we're going to hear from the folks that are assembled with us at the table, and I think I'll go from this side and move this direction. We have a group of both small businesses and then the financing partners as well. So John, if you might like to introduce yourself, tell us about your role in this program and how it fits alongside the rest of what you're doing.
Sure. My name, again, is John Bergstrom. I'm a Minnesota native, U of M graduate, worked in venture capital my entire career. Mars and Power, as some of you may know, is a long-standing, almost 100-year-old investment firm in St. Paul. Manages public stocks and bonds for mostly individuals, about $10 billion under management. It's owned by the people that work there, 100% Minnesota residents. It's a really good firm, very involved in the community. In fact, I was already dressed this morning in clothes for a Habitat for Humanity work project. That's where I was earlier, and I'll be back there again later today. It's just a good example of Mars and Power as a firm. 5 years ago, I joined Mars and Power. My own career being in venture capital, Mars and Power wanting to enter venture capital as one of their activities, first private funds for the firm. So we put together a small fund 3-4 years ago that got fully invested. Last year, 13 companies, 9 of them Minnesota-based companies, 4 elsewhere in the Midwest. We're very Minnesota first, Midwest second. Everywhere else, not really kind of investors. We started a second fund about 6 months ago, Mars and Power Ventures Fund 2. We're the SSBCI program from federal money, state administration, and university administration. Is a significant participant in our fund. They allowed us to have a first closing late last year with $25 million that we expect to invest primarily, entirely in the Midwest and majority in the state of Minnesota. We've made 3 of those investments so far. Just to give you a flavor of those 3 investments, one is legal technology, e-discovery services based in Bloomington. Second one, WireSpeed cybersecurity software services based in Minneapolis. We have another one that's coming along very soon that is based in outstate Minnesota. We're kind of proud of that outcome. And then we have a third investment that's in the Chicago region that we've made so far. So SSBCI program, University, State of Minnesota, all been really great to work with. Drew and Finn and others allowed us to close our fund. So in that first closing, 90% private money, 10% the money from the program, and really allowed us to get going. We're now closing in on $50 million in total funding by the end of this year. So that's my story.
Love it. Thank you very much. Lori, the first of our business owners, if you could introduce your business and tell us how this program has helped.
Sure. I'm Lori Zook. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of United Family Medicine or Riverland Community Health Center, depending on which part of the year you caught us in. We are a federally qualified health clinic that serves on West 7th in St. Paul. We service about 8,000 patients a year, and we're hoping to increase that to 11,500 by the end of this year. Last year, our partner Drake Bank came to me with this program because we were running out of runway. We did not recover well after COVID, and we had some internal dysfunction, let's put it that way. And so I came on board about 2.5 years ago, and in that time, the entire executive team, we turned over, we worked to improve our patient care, the culture of our company, but we were running out of runway. So this program, this infusion of cash for us, allowed us to rehire the appropriate staff. We've now been able to increase our services. We've, along with family medicine, dental and behavioral health, we now offer maternal fetal medicine, optometry. We're looking at a school-based health system in District 197 that will allow us to treat students and their teachers sometimes in school. And this program and our partnership with Great Bank is what allowed us to get the runway to get to where we are today.
Love that. And Lori, you've also, I think, illustrated that even though we're featuring successes here, sometimes it's a zigzaggy line to get there.
It is a zigzaggy line, and sometimes it's a rescue mission and not a, not an innovative approach, but it has provided another 40 employees in our organization from where we were at over a year ago. And we have seen our program, we added a pharmacy in the last year, 340B pharmacy, so we are seeing our program grow by leaps and bounds. It's good to see the clinic full again.
Yes, thank you. Michelle, you were telling me some amazing statistics beforehand about the impact of your technology, which impacts all of our health, so maybe you can tell us about your business and how it intersects with the program.
I'd be glad to. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to have us here today. I represent Claros Technologies. I'm Michelle Belanca. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Claros Technologies. I'd like to start with thanking Governor Walz for your comment on the survivability of startup businesses in Minnesota. That made me particularly happy with that 5-year mark. We're at 6 years with Claros and going into our 7th at this time. And the reason I think that's really important when you talk about our company is because what we do is not only essential in terms of the financial impact, it is solving one of the most prevalent problems that we as the United States and the rest of the globe face, which is the forever chemicals. Those of us that are fortunate to live in Minnesota are particularly vested in this challenge that we've got because 2 of the largest forever chemical companies are 3M and DuPont. And so when you look at the challenge that you've got, we are in the backyard of massive amounts of not only PFAS remediation, but preventing the problem from going further. And so what we do at Claros is we are a company that spun out of the University of Minnesota. So that's our first tie here. But the second is that we destroy forever chemicals permanently. And the reason why this is critical is there's a lot of false information out there. There's over 15,000 different types of forever chemicals. The United States is looking at regulating 6 of them. States like Minnesota have gone ahead of federal. There's 16 of them, and they've said, we're going to be like Europe, and we're going to regulate all 15,000 of them. So there's a vast swath of these forever chemicals, and they go from the long chain, which is what 3M and DuPont started with. That's what you all are familiar with in terms of PFOA and PFOS. But as they segued out of those and changed formulations, we've moved into the prevalence being the short and the ultra short chain. The reason this is important, particularly in Minnesota, is a very high majority of the forever chemicals that are in our soil, our water, going out the incineration in the landfills, they're the short and the ultra short. There is no other solution out there that permanently destroys all the way down to the ultra short. And why this really matters is everyone talks about this bad, as in change to something else. But you got to be careful of unintended consequences, right? 70% of the applications where PFAS is used are essential, meaning there is no deemed substitute for those applications. You could argue, is waterproof mascara essential? Probably not. But heart stents are, coatings on contact lenses, semiconductors, it's used in 4 different places in making a chip. Oil and gas, you can't frack without PFAS in terms of extraction in a variety of places. All of your implants in your body, your cholesterol medication, all contains PFAS. So the real key is not completely banning it, but looking at how do you keep it out of the environment, and that's where Claros comes in. I came out of 3M. I spent about 24 years at 3M, founded Claros out of the University of Minnesota, and what we do is we have a proprietary process that permanently destroys the PFAS all the way down to that final carbon-fluorine bond. We are the only company that destroys the short and the ultra short, and we're the only company out there globally that does continuous production. Meaning as these companies are pumping the wastewater effluent out of the back end of their facilities, it's got loads of PFAS in it. That's where you gotta start the change. Keeping it out of the water and doing it from a closed loop solution at an economical cost that incents these companies not to incinerate, not to landfill. That's what Claros does. So where the SSBCI funding came in for us is a couple of years ago we were raising our Series A. And we needed that Series A money in order to purchase the first reactor from another company that's used for UV disinfection that our scientists believed we could convert on the cheap to prove the concept for PFAS destruction. And so the U of M came into that with the SSBCI funding, as well as Capita 3, a local venture capital firm. And with that money, we were able to go out and buy this reactor, basically rig it up to work for destroying PFAS instead of bacteria in water. And then we were able to take that out to one of the top 2 PFAS makers in the world and put it into their facility, where eventually we were able to demonstrate that we could run and destroy 99.99% of all of their PFAS coming out of their facility, including the short and the ultra short. That was the seminal point for our company, and those funds that were used to demonstrate that actually led to us being able to secure, at this time we're in with 11 of the top 12 PFAS makers globally. You'll see an announcement next week that the top 2 are taking us across all of their plants globally, and we're now working with most of the large industries that are PFAS users. So those are your semiconductors, your pharmaceutical, your textile industries. So as of yesterday, the University of Minnesota came in with a second SSBCI grant for us as the precursor for our Series B, where we are now in the process of going to commercial scale with these large customers that we have. And so the funding for Claros has been essential both at our Series A and now as we go into our Series B, where we're commercializing in Europe, the United States, and Asia.
Nice. That's some great timing, U of M,
Yeah.
with coming in with the next round. And as you described, rigging up the reactor, I'm kind of envisioning duct tape and so forth, but maybe it was more sophisticated than that.
It was more sophisticated than that.
Well, great that it worked. Thank you so much for that wonderful story. Andrew, if you could tell us about your business and how SSBCI has helped.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for being here. I'm Andrew Galau. I'm the president and CEO of DOTSI. We are a healthcare enterprise solution to help health systems cut costs and waste and operate. In the U.S., roughly $25 billion worth of supplies is thrown in the trash every single year. As a physician-founded company, and someone who spent a lot of time in ORs as a special operations medic in my time in the military, saw a lot of supplies being wasted, saw a lot of time being wasted, just not having the right things when you need them. So we spent a couple of years putting together a great team to build a technology solution that helped health systems find this waste, bring the right data in front of the right people, get physicians involved in the solution in the process of ensuring they have what they need, but eliminating the waste in the OR. And with the help of Deed, and I believe we were the first recipients of the Growth Loan Fund, which was a great thing to be a part of and part of the program. We were able to go out and secure the seed funding that we needed to turn our MVP that we had into a full enterprise solution. And now we are in over 14 hospitals here in Minnesota. Our goal is we want to alleviate 5 billion of waste in the U.S. With our solution, and we've already saved, even in Minnesota, millions of dollars of supplies just being thrown in the trash. So it's been a great journey so far, and we're really excited to continue. And we would not be able to be here as a company without programs like this. We wouldn't be able to have the 8 employees that we have. We're really proud to have all our employees here in Minnesota. We work right downtown. We love being downtown and being part of the downtown environment and bringing people back into the office and back into that community.
Excellent, thank you. Did you tell us about your financing partner for the growth loan?
Yes, Groove Capital was our partner.
Excellent.
As well.
Thank you so much. Great story.
Thank you.
And finally, Andres?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So you are a late addition to the group representing LEDC, Latino Economic Development Center. Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us about, from the financing partner side, how this has worked for you?
Of course. First of all, thank you for inviting us. We're happy to be here. Yes, Dean as a whole has become a great partner for LEDC as a community lender. You know, thanks to Dean, we have been able to have access to lending capital that provide for Latino entrepreneurs or immigrants entrepreneur community, especially immigrant community who does not have a credit history in the country or not necessarily qualified through a regular bank loan. So with LEDC, we provide technical assistance and access to capital to entrepreneurs from the entrepreneurship side in a business in the city to entrepreneurs in the farms, with local farmers also supporting with access to capital as well. Thanks to DEED and this program, we have been able to provide support to businesses. For example, Latinos who started businesses 10 years ago, and now second generation, third generation of Latinos want to take the lead on the businesses, and they want to grow and they want to expand. So access to capital to buy equipment, working capital, hire more people in a low interest rate. It's part of the support that we have through the state through these programs as well. This is something that we can highlight. Obviously, the different sectors that we work go from the food industry, from construction, education, healthcare, real estate, because thanks to these programs, we have been able to help, especially Latinos who have been able to open businesses in greater Minnesota, who has been supporting the local community, and now they are accessing capital to buy actually the building where the business has been functioning. So we are helping Latino immigrants and immigrants and overall to build equity in that way to secure the continuation of the businesses.
It's fantastic. Any individual companies come to mind whose story you want to share? I think Cesar was
of
one
course,
of the
Cesar Morales from La Poblanita. Poblanita started like a small restaurant in Lake Street, and they started producing tortillas, and now they're expanding. Now they're going to buy in a building. They're going to open a second production line. So they're going to grow as an example of these. You know, these businesses started with the family, with the father and the mother, and now a son, the second generation, is taking the lead in expanding the business, creating jobs.
Outstanding. Thank you.
It's exciting. I think what we're going to do is we'll allow the press to kind of dictate a few questions here, drive this conversation. But I think the thing you heard, and from Andre and from others, access to capital is many times the barrier. There's a lot of great ideas that die on the vine before they get there, and I know that old adage that the capital will flow to the best ideas. Sometimes it's just getting the heads up to that best idea out there, and I think you heard it in many of these cases, 90% private, 10% coming in to help on this. That's a pretty good mix, and then as you grow, the private capital will flow, the wealth will be created, the jobs will be created, and I'm just really grateful both for the visions that's here, but I think university, DEED, and certainly grateful for that federal government coming in and being able to help. And at the end of the day, I keep saying that they will collect far more than their $100 million investment over the years from us. And that investment is in people, it's in businesses, it's in the future. So I'm going to leave it to the press if you have a few questions for any of the folks up here.
Given that this is ARPA money, this is safe from any changes coming from the federal government, correct?
Yeah, Matt, I might have you talk about this. So.
Thank you. You're right about the source, and we are grateful for the partnership with the federal government and are not aware of any major changes coming, and we hope that that will remain.
And we look at these and are assessing every program. This morning we were talking on the Medicaid side of things, and I just give you this statistic as we're looking at it on the changes in the bill that just passed. The cost of just doing the paperwork to meet the requirements in that bill on Medicaid, to get people off Medicaid, to shrink our numbers, is estimated in Minnesota at about $150 million. That's not the loss of the Medicaid dollars. That's in it. That's a whole separate bunch of money. Just for the state of Minnesota to manage what they passed in Medicaid alone is estimated to be about $150 million. So the question is well placed because it is a deep concern. This is, as we heard, the second tranche going out. There is a piece of this left of roughly the 33 million or so that I do think we need to be concerned with. At this point in time, though, we have no indication that they're touching this. So it's a good question, though.
And, you know, we'll keep delivering great results, and I think that helps to make our case.
Could somebody speak to how you're making decisions about which businesses you're giving money to?
Maybe you.
Sure. The venture capital side, we have an investment committee that's comprised of folks internally at the university. We also partner with our colleagues in the Discovery Capital Program, so the people who are part of technology commercialization here at the university. And really that's from soup to nuts, looking at how we source, how we do diligence, you know, which companies advance down the pipeline. One of the opportunities that's really been beneficial is I think about the synergies of the program is we can also leverage some of the venture capitalists that are part of this program. As they do diligence, they see a lot of these companies, so it puts us in a position to make the best decisions possible. Because while, as has been mentioned, an important aspect of this program is to help those that are often underserved by the traditional capital markets. We need this to be about generating returns, and we need to be really thoughtful about which companies we deploy capital with. And so, really throughout that process, we have many involved here at the university, and then we also partner with Drew and Kevin and others at D just to make sure from a compliance perspective that everything's well aligned.
It's a really good question. John, I might have you from Merit Power standpoint and maybe Andre to go in. How do you make decisions on this? Say there's someone out there got a great idea, they're a small business owner, and they're in this very place that you heard these folks. How do you guys decide that?
Well, we're returns driven, so every decision we make anticipates that we will make the returns that a venture capital investor would demand. We do have a preference for proximity, which supports Minnesota, in part because we just think people and support networks are better here, and also because we can help them more. We tend to be on the boards of these companies or advisors to the companies, so the closer they are, the better to us. So we do put a priority on proximity, especially in Minnesota, but in the end, it's about investment return, which means many things. It means are there logical future buyers of these companies? Will the companies be able to raise more money if they need it? Evaluation of management team, technology, market size, all those things go into the equation.
And Andre, that's what you help your folks talk about. Indeed's got folks that can help with that as you're developing a business plan. You know, we have some of those those retired executives that are willing to work with people. That's what you do too, right?
We provide the technical support to our business community. So it goes from the startup point to businesses who have been in operation for years and they want a different type of technical assistant. And when we're doing the evaluation of the process in terms of accessing to capital, we look for the better option for them, whether it is a low interest rate or a different program that we can help them to accommodate so they can access to the financing piece that they need. So as we work, we identify the partners that can be involved in the process based on the characteristics of the project, and that's how we go through our approval process through our committees, and then we move to the financing piece.
This is one of the challenging pieces in government financing, because it's a great question to ask on this. Not every business is going to succeed, and then when you invest in a company and they fail, are those wasted dollars? I would argue they are not. They're a part of this, but you do have to have the safeguards in place. You have to follow the procedures to make sure that we're not investing. And the state of Minnesota does not want to get into a Foxconn situation where we put billions of dollars into something that was never going to produce what it did. I would make the argument that these are small, and in many cases some of the big companies would see them as micro investments almost in companies, and this return, especially in small businesses, is really good. As we said, it goes back to that survivability rate, and the capital will flow. John's not putting money into something if it's not going to work. And so it's a really good question, but it's one that I think is always a challenge for us. If you invest in something and it doesn't pan out, then that's kind of business.
Could we hear a little bit about the, I think, 6 different programs that are available under that SSBCI and why it's important to have such a wide breadth of sort of programs available for this money to go toward?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I'm happy to sort of recite what those 6 are. And fortunately, we have in the room with us the experts that are actually delivering them and can go beyond the basics if we want any more detail. But so they are the Automation Loan Participation Program, knowing that automation is increasingly important as AI develops and as we continue to have a tight labor force. We know that automation is part of the equation there. The Growth Loan Fund, one of you mentioned that was you. Yes, thank you. That you benefited from low interest loans of up to $400,000 based on 20% private investment secured during a 12-month enrollment period. Minnesota Loan Guarantee Program. This is somewhat similar to how the SBA operates at 7A program, where we help to take off some of the risk for the lender in case of a default. Small Business Loan Participation Program. That's where we buy a slice of a loan made by a private partner. And then 2 venture capital pieces, the direct investment venture capital and then the multi-fund venture capital, where we're putting dollars into a variety of funds. And this speaks to, again, the question of how do we decide what business to invest in? We don't really. We enlist the expertise of all those partners, and they bring to bear their knowledge about underwriting and so forth, and then you get a better result at the end.
Can you do a couple more on topic or off?
We'll take some off when we're done. Is there any last on topic?
Quasi on topic. It's about something you said, Governor. On the Medicaid costs for the compliance with all the paperwork, is that just the state's cost, or is that also accounting for what the counties are going to do?
It's county, yes. It's the county because it gets passed down. No, it's a great question, but there's going to be a massive amount of work just to implement the bill that was passed. And I think you keep in mind the number we have is somewhere around $1.2 billion in lost Medicaid dollars, plus the number of people who drop up. But I just think it's critically important in this idea about the clawback of money, trying to save money. There is no savings in the bill. There's no savings in terms of it's going to be passed back down, and it's going to add to the debt. So it's good for us, I think, to be here to highlight these programs that are growth, to see the private sector growing. And as you're seeing it, it's across the spectrum of businesses, of both adding and solving big problems, but adding small family businesses. Anyone else on topic? We'll switch it off. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Unless you want to talk about off-topic questions with them, you're sure welcome to answer them. So go right ahead if you've got some.
Can you address some of the latest litigation? Or not, it's more of an investigation from the DOJ. There's several things going on in the federal government, the latest related to the EHS hiring policy.
Yeah, that not surprising again that the latest one was predicated on a 1987 law in Minnesota that has been followed by Democrats, Republicans, and independent governors. It has never run into a problem now. In the midst of updating some of our manuals, apparently brought to the attention of the federal government that the hiring policies actually take a look at and make sure that we're getting a diverse pool and that people have the opportunity, especially to work in state government. So they will go through their process. We will be in a lawsuit with them, so I don't want to jeopardize that. But I think it's really important that I think we recognize this as a 40-year-old law in Minnesota that's functioned fine by all standards. But it's just a continuous fishing expedition on these things, so we'll let it play itself out.
To follow that briefly, I mean, based on the direction we've seen the federal government, the courts, Supreme Court specifically, take on affirmative action laws recently, how do you feel about this one and the chances it might have sticking in place here in Minnesota?
Yeah, I think there's a potential. I think the Supreme Court, and again, we follow what the court does. We honor what they say. It doesn't mean that I agree that they're right. We had a recent decision on the Department of Education. It seems to me that Article 1 of the Constitution, that government entities and government agencies are created by the legislature, and the idea that you could arbitrarily change those from the executive branch, I say that on being both sides of that firewall, seems almost unimaginable to me that they would allow that to go forward. So yes, I think the question is well taken. I think this absolute commitment, but I keep making note to people that in that piece of legislation was making sure that we were hiring disabled veterans, that they were getting an opportunity to get hired, making sure that we were following the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Facilities Act. So when you hear DEI, we know that there's a framing going into that. The idea is giving all people access and a fair shot to get in. What we know in Minnesota, we have one of the highest labor participation rates in the country. If you want to work in Minnesota, you can. We've got more openings than we have people for jobs. So the issue here is that somehow somebody is not getting a fair shot. And I believe the case in that one that you're speaking of made the case that white Minnesotans will be discriminated against. I think they'll have a hard time proving that, but they will attempt it.
Governor, would a conviction in Senator Mitchell's case be disqualifying in your opinion?
I would leave that to the legislature. The way I understand it, if it's a felony conviction, that it's an automatic. I may be mistaken on that, being in the executive branch. But I would just say at this time, let the courts do what they need to do. We will cross that bridge when it gets there. I have spoken on this, earlier and expressed my opinion, but that's just an opinion. We will follow what the courts say, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken on this, if there's a felony conviction, that the Senate would do an automatic expulsion. But check me on that.
Governor, since we're at the U, I know you were planning on looking at the Regents application
Yes.
a little more closely this week. Any update on that? And can you tell us, even if you can't say, you narrowed it down to this many, like what are you looking for?
Yeah. Well, again, I think this. I found this interesting. Here's a trivia point for you. The oldest legal authority that a governor in Minnesota has is this one. It predates statehood, and it's territorial governance that is at place here. So this is pre-1858. I fall into the category where I think we're better off when we have the committee to do this. I think there was a process to do this, but of course it got caught up in the political end of session. There are folks out there that have spent a lot of time thinking about this. Obviously, I care deeply about this institution. I know the folks that I want to see investing in it, understanding what a land-grant university is, understanding that mission is to serve undergraduates, but it's also to do the things you're seeing right here as well as research. So we will listen to the folks that were coming in. I have seen a preliminary list of the names that were being submitted by difference. I think we are on schedule over the next several weeks that those will be put together, and I will be interviewing candidates as they come forward. And I think the goal, I don't want to get locked into this, I think the goal is to get those in place by the start of the calendar, the academic year, the end of August or post Labor Day.
You, during the session, had talked a little bit about potentially looking at a special session when we knew what the reconciliation bills would look like. We now have that bill, we have the impact of Medicaid here and now. Is that something that's still...
Well, we're putting it together. Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm getting a much better grasp myself on this. The briefing I got this morning, pretty extensive briefing from the folks at DHS, started to show me the timelines when these things would kick in, and that's the first time I heard the operational number just for management, just for managing the bill, the $150 million. And I have to tell you, that one set me back because that's, of course, and that is not going to be funded by the federal government. It's going to fall to the counties, as was pointed out. So we're just getting a grasp on this. I think at this point in time, probably premature to think about that, but we'll see. I know I saw that the inflation numbers were up this morning and some of that. It will be dependent on what happens economically at this point in time. I think some of you saw the numbers last week. The end of year revenue numbers were up nearly $1 billion, and that puts Minnesota in a strong financial position. The good bipartisan work of this legislative session reduced that long-term structural imbalance by over half, and now with this influx coming in, the concerns of 28, 29 are pretty small where they were. Now, all that's going to be dependent on what happens with the economy, what happens with these things on Medicare, Medicaid, and how we think about things like emergency response is what we're thinking about too. The good news is that we've got somewhat of a firewall there. I use the state's disaster contingency account on several, and I think we'll be using them in Bemidji, obviously. So we're okay at this point, but I think it behooves us to be prepared for that.
Are there other I remember last year or the year before you had leftover COVID money you're using for food banks and things like that. Are there other pots of money you can tap for things like SNAP cuts, like addressing things like that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I don't want to, I do not believe so on this, Joy, that I think most of that we use, there's a timeline of when it had to run out. This is some of the final that's in the queue, this type of money that's there, but not much. And I think this is kind of a fine line. We're going to do everything possible to alleviate any hurt that comes to Minnesotans, but I think we have to be very steely-eyed about this one. We don't have the resources to make up a difference on the Medicaid cuts. The SNAP cuts, of course, we'll look at, but all of those, and then there's all of the other pieces that that will not come forward. So we're assessing every day. I think you leave open the possibility we may have to come back. I think the good news is Minnesota is in a strong financial position as we set to weather a bit of the storm with our rainy day funds, but not to the extent of billions of dollars in certain programs.
Governor, can you just briefly address some of the criticism that you've gotten over using taxpayer money to prepare for your testimony in D.C.?
Well, it was my job as governor of Minnesota. I wasn't called in on anything that I did. I've not been sued personally for anything. It wasn't my actions that did this. That a committee that is there for political theater determined that they wanted to bring people in, and the heading was sanctuary states, which they themselves acknowledge we are not one. I think it's an incredible waste of money. But it's the job of governor that I was brought there. I think, again, I would be asked, and I have to tell you, I find it incredibly rich that the members of Congress who drugged me there and then screamed about things that weren't about immigration at me are the ones that just cost us $150 million in operational costs for a bill that they voted for. So I agree with the public. It's absolutely outrageous, but I think people need to know it's a very unique situation. It wasn't to find out about immigration. It was to try and capture governors in a perjury situation. And there are expert attorneys that deal with congressional hearings all the time. The state of Minnesota does not possess that expertise. And to be quite honest, they got the jobs of governing Minnesota to do. So to pull away staff that are doing other things, and that was right at the end of the legislative session. So here's what I would say is if you are angry about state dollars being spent on that, I am right with you. But I would ask you to make sure that there was no reason I needed to be there. There was nothing came out of it. There's been no follow-up on it, and it was done for theatrics, apparently. I got asked about the president's health. I got asked about biology. Those were things you need to be prepared for, and I keep in mind that it's a very rare thing, and I don't know how often it's ever happened, that they swore in governors. I served in Congress for 12 years, and I served on committees and went to every one of them. It was incredibly rare, a handful of times, where someone was sworn in under oath, and they did that at that hearing. So, yeah, I would just respond. Incredible waste of money. Should not have been there. We have to do this. We have to, defend ourselves, and we've done it on other things. And the Republicans had no problems when we hired outside counsel to defend a pipeline project or something like that. So the politics around this one are horrific. And I will just say this, I don't possess the personal wealth to be able to pay for it myself, but it was in my capacity of a job. If this had been something I did, then I think there's more of an argument.
All right.
All right. Got one more.
Do you think the state will need to hire outside counsel and help for some of these federal investigations, or is that something the state will be able to?
Potentially. I'm not going to say exactly on this, but we've done that before. And this idea of hiring outside counsel is not at all unusual. You know, we did it with the Chauvin trial and other things like that. The complexities of some of these require that. And the state folks are not there like waiting in the wings to do something. They all have jobs that they're doing on a daily basis. And if you pull them away from that, the costs are still there. But yeah, that seems pretty ridiculous. Thank you to the University of Minnesota. Thank you to our business owners. Really grateful. The good news is that economic numbers in Minnesota still seem to be able to produce, and it's because of the folks you see up here. So thank you all.